Hello, it's June 2nd, 2022, and welcome to the S Rank Media Club, your experts on excellence making the world a less lonely place. I'm Colton Wallace, joined by my co host, Quinn Foster,
How's it going, guys?
Quinn, and Kudrow.
How's it going, everyone?
So, today on the show, we're going to be talking about our gaming history, um, kind of to give you guys a basis of where our gaming tastes lie, and we're going to discuss our signature S Rank rating system. And then once we do that, we'll talk a little bit about the Halo TV series that just came out on Paramount recently and some new Sonic Frontiers footage that just got released yesterday. So, um, welcome to the show, everyone. We're going to be doing this Thursdays at 9. Thanks for joining us for the inaugural episode here. Um, so, kind of first thing we want to do is dive into a bit of our gaming history. So I guess Quinn, do you want to start with your gaming history?
Yeah, I can go first. If you can't tell, I'm the youngest. If you're watching the video, I'm the youngest here on the podcast, so my taste is probably a little different than both Colton and Kudrow. But I started gaming kind of with the Game Boy Advance first, playing games like Super Mario World, and then the third generation Pokemon games, Ruby and Sapphire. Um, and I'm hoping I can bring a little bit of a different perspective, a younger perspective to the chat. And so from the Game Boy, I moved on to the GameCube. Lots of Nintendo in our household growing up, so we had the GameCube. Played lots of Mario Kart, Double Dash, games like that, Mario Party, and then we got a Wii. So then that was like I think right around 2008 when I think every household in America bought a Wii for their kids. So I was a part of that. And then the first console I ever purchased was the Xbox 360. And I did a lot of sports gaming. So played a lot of FIFA, and then a few FPS games like Call of Duty. And then as I got older and, started making it on my own, I bought my first PC and now I'm enjoying life on PC. So um, lots of different experiences, and I'm excited to get started. So
Gotcha. So I also played some Pokemon games. I was like obsessed, but I was obsessed with red and blue and then yellow and then a little bit silver and gold. But so I kind of had that same experience with an earlier generation of Pokemon.
yeah, it's a little. I'm always a little young for
Yeah,
those,
right.
but yeah. So excited.
Yeah. Kudrow, what about you? What's your gaming history?
Mm, well, that's for me. I guess I'll have to show my age a little bit here, as Quinn kind of alluded to. Uh, I kind of started off with the original Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, playing like the original Sonic games, original Mario. Uh, uh, Skipped to the Game Boy after that, kind of like what you guys were talking about. I played a lot of Pokemon. I did play Red and Blue. Probably spent the most time with Yellow version and Gen 1. Gen 2. Gen 2 is probably where I spent the most time in gaming, period. I can't tell you how many times I replayed Pokemon Silver, Pokemon Crystal. Think I played through Gold once, oddly enough. After that, like I didn't have too many consoles growing up. Like I completely skipped the GameCube, the Super Nintendo, the N64. I ended up somehow going from the Sega Genesis to the PlayStation 1.
Hmm.
And then that started my lifelong love of JRPGs. So playing let me see here, Final Fantasy 7 I think was the first JRPG I ever played. But the entire Final Fantasy series, Lunar, Wild Arms, for anyone who remembers those games. Uh, PlayStation, I'd say PlayStation 2 was like, Kingdom Hearts was a standout.
Hmm.
Final Fantasy 10. Let's see here, jump to the Xbox, playing like Halo and such. But nowadays, I've probably moved more to like the action RPGs. So like I've spent a ton of time with the Souls games, Witcher 3, Hollow Knight, just to name a few games that I've kind of played in recent memories. Uh, I still do love turn-based. I still go back to one occasionally when it catches my eyes, but I feel like action RPGs is kind of where my life is right now.
Yeah, I can attest Kudrow is very good at the Souls games. I also play them, but he's a bit better. So myself, my gaming history goes back to kind of with Kudrow. I played NES as a child. And then beyond that, I had an SNES in the house after that, which I played a lot of like Super Mario World. And I loved that game. But then I had friends that had a Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, so I played different games with them. Like I remember playing Mortal Kombat 2, I think, with one of my friends, and there was like a Spider-Man side-scroll fighting game that I loved. And so I had exposure to a lot of different things, but then the N64 was like the first console that I remember anticipating and being aware of, and like I was so excited when I got that Super Nintendo. I still remember getting the Super Nintendo, and I remember playing Wave Race 64 and Super Mario 64. Um, then after that, I was always involved in some generation of consoles. So um, I got really into Pokemon Red and Blue, like I told you, Quinn, and Silver and Gold, and then I kind of fell off Pokemon after that, but not RPGs. I got super into Diablo 1 because some store person never like warned my mom that I was getting Diablo 1. So as a child, I got Diablo 1 and I remember being like messed up. I'm like, this is wild, but it was so fun. I've loved loot games ever since then. Um, Following that, I got into at a GameCube, played an extensive amount of Super Smash Bros. Melee with Kudrow actually.
Good
Uh,
times.
Yeah, and then me and a few of my friends got obsessed with Phantasy Star Online, and then I've carried that obsession to this day. Um, but that was Phantasy Star Online like addicted me even more to like looter RPG games, and I still kind of love those. My favorite character. So, question from the chat: who's your favorite character in Super Smash Bros? If we're talking melee, I'd probably say I would always play Luigi, Marth, and Young Link. Kudra, I know you have some favorite melee characters. Who are yours?
Melee? Melee. I remember playing Mario and Link
Mhm.
mostly. Later versions of Smash Bros. So Brawl and most recently Ultimate. I'm a Toon Link main.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I
I
think
was
I didn't play a ton of those, so I still kind of kept a lot of like Luigi and Marth. But yeah, Quinn, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I was gonna be worried if someone said Kirby or, or Jigglypuff.
Wasn't Meta Knight like a banned character in the?
Yeah, in Brawl he
Yeah.
got banned. I was a fox.
Oh,
I like to play
gotcha.
fox,
Yeah,
but yeah. So or Luigi. Luigi was good as well.
gotcha.
So but yeah.
So for me, after the GameCube, end of high school and most of college, I still played some games, but I wasn't really into gaming as much. Like I still played a lot of like Halo with friends, but I picked up a couple games along the way. Like I remember playing Skyrim, Final Fantasy 13, but I wasn't as like involved with gaming, and I didn't follow gaming as much. But then once I got out of college, excuse me, once I got out of college, I built a PC and I kind of slowly got back into gaming because the PC was for messing around with music production. But I'm like, oh well, I want a game too, so I bought a graphics card for it, and I slowly got into it to the point where I was only playing on PC eventually. Um, so from like 2012, 2013 on, I mostly played on PC. Um, and I've gotten really deep into just the uh, culture of games, and I just follow all kinds of games and I find it very interesting. Even the ones I don't play, I just kind of follow a lot of it. And now I find myself more discerning about the games I want to play, but I still kind of enjoy trying out a bunch of different ones. Um, and that's kind of what led me to want to do this podcast is just my love for gaming and just like trying all different kinds of games and giving new ones a chance. My top genres now really have become like the best way I can describe it is games with a depth of RPG stats plus like character building and loot. I also like competitive multiplayer turn-based strategy, but I'm open to trying different things. Like I just recently, I always felt like I was terrible at fighting games, and then I don't know, 3 weeks ago, I saw Mortal Kombat 11 was free on, or not free, but it was on Game Pass, so I was already in on the cost, so I just started playing it, and turns out I'm having a lot of fun with it. So maybe I'll just really dive into fighting games. Um, Anyway, so that kind of covers our individual gaming history. So the next thing we wanted to talk about to kind of set a basis for this show is defining how we're gonna like rate things. We just want to be able to give a numeric rating to things to either compare them or just to arbitrarily assign numbers because it's fun. Um, so we're gonna have our signature S rank rating system, which it's basically a 7 point system where F is 0 and the top is S. And additionally, we're gonna try to have a few additional rules to make the ratings more meaningful. So an A plus rating is an amazing game. But S should be reserved for things that are the absolute top tier. So you can think of an A as a 5 out of 5 experience. An A plus is like a tinge above like a 5 out of 5. And then an S plus is like the ultimate top tier in the field. And then it'll function as a current day system. So podcast members are allowed to revise their scores if they find a reason to in the future. Like say a multiplayer game that kind of develops over time. Like you can it can develop into a better game over the course of a year. And then you come back and say, actually, this is a lot better now. I want to revise kind of how I rate this. And then for example, we reserve the right to base our experience in the now and not on how the landscape was when the media originally released. So if you were to go back and play GoldenEye, obviously a first-person shooter game doesn't necessarily hold up as well. And the reason to apply ratings in like the current day is because if you go back to pick up a game, you're going to be playing it in the basis of a current day. So I can't recommend you go play GoldenEye right now. I think it's not going to feel good. But when the N64 came out, like it was so much fun. But now that you've had experience with all these shooters with way better kind of controls, I can't say that's a good experience to go back to. And then I'd like to track all our scores somewhere. I haven't figured out exactly how we're going to do that, but just to have like a record of it so we can hold each other accountable for arbitrary numbers that we gave in the past.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, that kind of describes our system. So to kind of walk through that, I figured we could walk through the ranks and talk about what games we would put at each rank to kind of give more definition to the whole system. I think we'll start bottom up. Sound good to you guys?
Sure.
You want to go, Kudrow? Go ahead.
Well, I think we can talk through the rings. Like we can start at the F tier.
Okay.
So we can talk about something that would be in the F tier. And I can tell you something that's clearly in the F tier. Easy. Almonds.
That's a bold claim. I'm an almond fan personally, but
So I'm specifically talking almonds the nut, not almond milk or almond butter.
Right,
Those are
right.
fine. Almonds the nut, that's F tier. There's you could have pecans, walnuts. I mean, there's so many better choices.
I have to disagree, but you're entitled to your own opinion, obviously. So this is for the to show how it's done, right? So
Yeah.
my F tier is seafood because I don't like seafood.
You're just blanketing seafood all into the F tier. That's wow. Nothing like creeps up a little bit. What about fake?
I can do shrimp, but seafood is
It's just all F tier. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the bold way to just take all seafood and put it in F tier.
I know for me, it's I guess kind of going along with the nut theme is walnuts. I can't stand them. Texture, taste, they're
It feels
terrible.
like a personal attack on me. You're like, I'm trying to bring down almonds, so you come back at me with walnuts.
I don't know. I think like nuts in general function as more of like a side item for. You don't usually eat just raw nuts, right? Like, I mean, I eat raw almonds, but
raw nuts.
you put it in a salad or something like that, right? So
It
I-
kind of depends on the nuts.
I-
Like, I mean, I could take a handful of peanuts and eat those.
that's true. That's true.
I don't think
They'd
so.
have a seasoning on them though. They'd have salt on them for sure though. If you're eating peanuts,
Dude, you can totally eat plain walnuts or plain pecans. They're delicious,
I do.
but not Kudrow.
All
right, so I guess from there we'll kind of move into like other low tier items. So for me, I can say like hot dogs. I put those in the D tier. And then another game I put this in the E tier. That would be Extreme G3 Racing for the GameCube, and that might be a little more personal. It was a game that I remember as a child. I was allowed a birthday present, and I got to pick out a game for my birthday. And I was thinking about buying Cell Damage, which I had rented before, and that's like a car battling game. And that was like I knew that was good because I'd rented and played it, but I saw this other game. It was XG3 Racing, and it was like had some pretty anime girl on it or something, and like she had a motorbike, and I'm like, I like racing games, so I got that instead, and
and for
I hated it.
Oh,
And just not it. I guess it was really hard too, and like really like if you didn't win the races, you couldn't play the other tracks. So it was a very hard game, and I think I just wasn't at that age. I wasn't good enough to beat it. So ever since then, I've always like despised the game as like because I was like, shit, I should have got Cell Damage. I knew that was a good game, but then I got this other game that I don't even really like. So yeah, XG3
that's
Racing.
just like the difficulty slider.
No, I
No.
no, it's just a hard game. So because of that, it's an E. I can't rate it any higher. Any other low tier items you guys want to highlight?
I don't really have. I couldn't really come up with anything yet, but I'm sure I'll come up with something. I mean, right now I have at D. I have watermelon because I'm not a fan of watermelon, which I know is an unpopular opinion. But in terms of gaming and entertainment stuff, I don't have anything that fits that tier as of yet. So
Gotcha. I mean, I don't love watermelon either. I could see that as kind of a low tier item.
I think I feel like I'd put watermelon in at least a C, but as far as low tier items, like things I've watched recently, like the Morbius movie, that was really bad. I'm kind of waffling between a D and an E for it, but it was not good.
So what made you go see Morbius? Like I maybe I'll watch it at some point, but you went to the theater to see it, obviously, because that's the only place it is now, correct?
I believe so. Oh, I think it's out on. I think you can get it on like
yeah,
digital now, but
I
yeah, I
got
did go see it in theaters. And the reason I went to go see it in theaters was because I saw it had all these terrible reviews, and so I'm just
You
kind of
went to it
like,
because it had terrible reviews.
yeah, I genuinely thought it's like there's no way this movie can be as bad as they're making it out to be. And
Yeah.
then I saw it and I was like, well, I was wrong.
Wow.
it's Morbin time.
I mean, without spoiling the movie, is there any way to describe like what makes it so terrible? Is it just bad acting? Is the plot bad? Is there anything that stands out as terrible specifically?
I feel like the villains. I mean, okay, I'm gonna try to avoid spoilers here. The villain really didn't do it for me. It's kind of like the villain's motivation. Like I don't know how I can explain this without spoilers. Basically, it's like 1 minute he's an okay dude, the
Okay.
next minute he's just this. He's just evil. So
I think Game of Thrones did something like that.
now I will say the one thing I will say is that ironically enough, the villain is probably part of what made the movie because he was like really fun to watch.
Okay.
But his motive, he's probably the only fun part of the entire movie, to be honest. But like motivation, like the writing in general is just really bad. It really does feel like it really just feels like the movie itself didn't have a ton of passion put into it. Like it was literally just made to set up future projects. And especially like the connection that they're making the after credit scene makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
I gotcha. So I guess with that, we'll move into like kind of describe our middle tier games, or middle tier entertainment. For me, a game that I'd put in the C plus tier would be Code Vein, which Code Vein is what it's been referred to as an anime Dark Souls, and Code Vein to describe why it's in the C plus tier. It is, the combat is okay, but it doesn't really have a lot of different feeling combat. Every enemy in the game, it feels like, just does 360 damage moves. Like when you play Dark Souls, some enemies feel like they have obscenely like complicated patterns where they do full 360 moves. But a lot of times in Dark Souls, you fight bosses and they have certain patterns and certain kind of ways to play around them. In Code Vein, I felt like every boss just did full 360 spins and I had to dodge roll everyone no matter what. That was the way to beat everyone until you got to the last one when you had to play a completely different game or else you weren't going to beat it. But in the end, it was fun. Like the systems were okay. Like it had cool ideas where you had these blood codes that would define your abilities, but they didn't always feel so useful. And it just kind of felt like a lot of the enemies functioned as the same. So it was decent. And then if I'm staying in the Souls-like category, move up to the B plus tier. That's where I'd put the Surge 2. And the Surge 2 is a game where you're fighting other like robot creatures and you can cut their body parts off and make your own body parts and upgrade them. And the Surge 2 does a better job of like the upgrade system and kind of making your character feel evolving in a way, and the abilities feel cooler and the weapons feel a little better than I would say Code Vein does. But the Surge 2 kind of falls flat on the bosses because there's not that many bosses. And then like the coolest boss in the game, I would say, is like this tiger thing you fight, and you fight him 6 times, I think. Like just different versions of him. But the bosses are just not varied enough. And kind of one of the cool things about Souls games is the boss battles. So it has a good combat system, but then there's just not, it doesn't feel like there's very many types of boss battles. And then the last boss in that game, just like, it's like the whole design of everything in the game. And then there's the last boss who feels like a wildly different design than all of it. But it's got some cool concepts and it kind of tries to do its own stuff, whereas I feel like Code Vein doesn't deviate as much from like kind of a Dark Souls idea. Yeah, so that kind of defines my mid tier. I guess another game I could mention is Final Fantasy VIII. I would put that as a B tier. And Final Fantasy VIII, I like the story, and this could be personally because I played this game when I was younger. But I like the story of it, but the battle system can be kind of repetitive, and it's just repeatedly summoning your GFs over and over again. But I do like the story, and I enjoyed that much of it. So, what about you guys? What defines your middle tier?
I guess I'll hop in real fast. For my middle tier, starting I guess with C plus, I'm gonna go with like Mario Party 8, which was the first Mario Party after GameCube Mario Parties.
Okay.
So like I think Mario Party 6 and 7 were the last two on GameCube. Mario Party 8, it kept, the same style.
Mhm.
So it was a solid game. But yeah, I'd say C plus. It's not as good as the GameCube. Like Mario Party 6, I would say is probably better.
You have Mario parties that you'd rate above a C tier?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think I put any Mario Party above a C tier.
I think Mario Party 4 through 6 would probably be anywhere from B to A plus.
Oh my gosh!
So those mini games are really good. So
It's not even a game; it's just a slot machine.
It's not a slot machine; it's a party game.
Yeah, a party slot
You
machine.
play with your friends.
The fucking boo just comes and steals all your stars.
I mean,
Just-
you don't play any RNG games? What?
no matter what you do, it's the end of the game. Nintendo's like, hey, let's roll the dice and see who gets to trade what stars. You just
Yeah, but it's all about the setup. You gotta set yourself up for success.
yes, I get 10 stars, and then some jagweed comes in and just lands on the right space and rolls the dice. Then it's like, oh, you're gonna switch stars with this guy, and then I got 1 star. That's
Sounds like a personal problem you gotta take up with Nintendo. I can't help you with that.
no. It's
Anyway, well, let's get away from Mario Party before Colton gets too upset. I'd say B+ for me, Portal 2.
Mhm.
And maybe this is because I played it right out of the gate. I played it kind of later. So it's definitely a nice puzzle game. Very unique with the portals, and obviously the puzzle problem solving is really
Did you play Portal
unique.
2 multiplayer?
I tried to play with my fiance Julie,
Uh-huh.
but I don't think she was like that interested in it, so
I gotcha.
we didn't end up finishing it. But
I gotcha.
yeah,
Because Portal 2
so
is kind of a game designed to be played multiplayer, right? Like that's how I played it. I played
yeah, I mean you can still play single player.
Mhm.
The only reason I got it was because it was like remastered, or it was like one of those game of the year cheapo games I found at GameStop or Target or something like that. And I was like, oh, I'll pick it
Oh,
up
gotcha. Okay.
on Xbox 360. So
Okay.
yeah, kind of going from there, kind of in the middle of those, maybe Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was the most recent Assassin's Creed,
Yeah.
set in ancient Greece.
Okay.
So I didn't start playing Assassin's Creed until the kind of the newer generation of Assassin's Creed, which is like more of an open world,
Yeah.
which
right.
I kind of enjoy more. So I know a lot of Assassin's Creed purists probably hate that, but they usually say they enjoyed the older games. But yeah, I place that at a B. Good gameplay, good combat, open world is really nice. But yeah, so I'd say that's kind of my middle tier. But yeah,
Gotcha. I haven't played any of the new Assassin's Creeds. I've watched some stuff on them, and I don't know. It's like there's so many open world games. It's like I haven't been swayed to step into those.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say you could even maybe go as far to say that the old Assassin's Creed, it's like you can't even square them up next to each
Right.
other, honestly,
Yeah.
because they're
Sure.
kind of totally different games. So
Yeah.
I played it more for the open world kind of feeling.
Mhm.
It is a Ubisoft game, so it can get pretty overwhelming with all the tasks and the microtransactions that they throw at you. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
All right.
I don't know.
Kudrow,
If you want to go shoot over Kudrow, yeah.
Highlight.
Oh yeah, so I'm actually going to address a question in the chat as I'm kind of going through this because I saw
Sure.
someone ask
Yeah.
if Code Vein is kind of hard to learn the controls for. And it's like, no, it does a pretty good job giving you a tutorial in the beginning of the game, which in Code Vein is where I actually placed it at a C, just a smidgen lower than you, Colton. And I mean, many of the things that I would also agree with, many of the things that you said are things that I would agree with, like the combat not being as tight is definitely one of my complaints that I had when I was playing through it. Like backstabs in particular, I noticed were really inconsistent.
Yeah, those are weird. I gave up on trying to do those.
But you know, the story, some of the writing definitely gets a little anime tropey. Just some things that probably if I had played the game like 12 years ago, I probably wouldn't have minded or even noticed as much. But now that I'm kind of getting older, it's like some of those anime tropes just really don't work for me anymore.
That I laughed at the story most of the time, but that reminds me. I don't know if there's a way to shut it off, but when I chose what character I brought with me based on how much they talked, because they would say the same lines over and over again, and I would sit here and talk back to them on my computer, and I'd say nice things to them. But they would just repeat the dumbest shit over and over again. And I should knock it down for that alone. I forgot about that.
I guess I did. I guess I didn't mind that as much. But I mean, just as like what you talked about too, like Code Vein does have strengths. Like the thing that I think was the best aspect of the game was its blood code system, like
Mhm.
being able to change your entire setup on the fly, and in addition to and because they gave you enough upgrade materials throughout the game, like you could even have multiple upgrades, uh,
So,
multiple upgraded weapons. So like there
did you
was,
find
I could
that
experiment
system?
with. Go
Did you
ahead.
find that system confusing at all? Like not necessarily the blood codes and abilities in them, but the like armors and like armor ratings and stuff. I feel like I could never figure out. I was like, I don't know they had these numbers on the armors, and it was really unclear what they did or what worked better with what. And then I played through the entire game, and I still don't think I fully understood what the hell the armor numbers meant.
I would have to re-look at the game to remember exactly. I do think there was like B plus, A plus, and then I think like the more you got up, like
Right.
almost like a
It,
little bit like our ranking system.
it
It
didn't
kind of
really, it was unclear to me if I was ever getting any better defense. Like I would try to get the higher letters, but I'm like, I don't really know if this is making a difference.
well, the first problem is that you were picking your armor for defense and not for style.
Oh, that's what I did because I
So
didn't know what the numbers did. So I just kind of picked what looked cool. Yeah, 100%. That's
Best way
eventually,
to play the game.
yeah.
yep, fashion souls. It's a real game.
Sorry, carry on with your analysis here.
Yeah, so C plus, and honestly, I may even rank this game a little bit higher than C plus, but Witcher 2, Assassin of Kings, fantastic story. Uh, the writing for it was really good. I played through it twice just to get both branches of the story.
Yeah.
But I didn't particularly enjoy the combat, which was a lot. I'm actually very glad they revamped it in Witcher 3, which
Yeah.
will appear higher on my rankings. But yeah, it's like there was just a lot of things that like I feel like you could do, but just weren't very useful. Like I didn't really find like potions and such in that game to be super useful. A lot of signs weren't as useful.
Mhm.
But at the very but for story alone and the characters, easy C plus. B tier, Neo. Neo is an action RPG, Souls-like from Team Ninja. Actually has, I think it takes its looting system inspirations from Diablo, but I mean, the gameplay alone is just super fun. It's probably has one of the better combat systems of any RPG that I've played, and which they improved upon in the sequel, thankfully. But the problem with Neo is just that it really suffers a lot from from a lack of enemy variety.
Mhm.
The storyline, I feel like you almost need like a degree in Japanese history to understand.
Okay.
Like none of the characters were that interesting, so to speak. But I mean, just for like the gameplay and the looting system, I mean that's really why you're playing Neo.
Yeah, that one's been on my list of considerations for Dark Soul or Souls likes to try. But I've read that it can feel repetitive, and that's what's kept me away this far. But it's possible I'll try. I'll probably just end up playing Neo 2 at some point, honestly.
I mean, yeah, I'm actually gonna talk about Neo 2 a little bit later, but yeah, and then for B plus, I've put Final Fantasy VII Remake in there.
Mhm.
Yep, which I mean, the storyline was really good, minus the little end part, which I could have definitely lived without. Gameplay was solid. It was just a really good game. I enjoyed it. I actually
Mhm.
definitely looking forward to remake part 2.
Yeah, I'm interested. I haven't tried that one because I thought it was for sure going to get ported to PC at some point, but I have. It seems like maybe it won't for a while still,
I
but
think it's a timed exclusive for like a year or so.
it's been longer than a year now.
Let me take a look at that.
I think it's been significantly longer than a year. So anyways, we can move on to kind of our what we would rank as high tier games now. So we'll talk about our A tiers and S tiers. I guess I can start it off. So in the A tier, and I would put XCOM Enemy Unknown, and I put that in the A tier because I think that's one of the best turn-based grid shooters kind of out there. It can be brutally hard, but it's just so fun to have like this soldier army and you build your base out and then you send your soldiers on missions, and it provides a lot of challenge. Um, and it just is the best game of that type, I think. Um, and it's really exciting to have your soldiers get stronger over time, and then you get like a sniper who can sit there with all his abilities, and then you'll have sometimes I would end up with like two snipers in the back line with so many abilities that they would just shoot anything that walked out until some enemy came out of the wall right next to my sniper and murdered both of them, and somehow I was supposed to stop that, but it's
That happens.
yeah. Then to kind of follow up on that, I would put XCOM 2 in the S tier. And XCOM 2 essentially just improves on XCOM 1 and really kind of improves on every system in there. Like it has the same, it's very similar in that you're building your kind of lab spaces for your in-between missions, and you're leveling up your soldiers, but it just adds more stuff to upgrade, more variety to your characters to customize their abilities and such, and it's just a better version essentially of XCOM. And I think that is the ultimate in that category of like the grid based kind of strategy. And then I guess for me, the S plus, two things I would put in the S plus tier: New York style pizza. That's the best pizza you can get, and I wish I could have some New York style pizza right now and all the time. And also Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst, which is the kind of final complete version of Phantasy Star Online. It's on the PC, and that's probably it's probably my best game of all time, Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst. But that game is it's a looting game. Essentially, you can have up to 4 people in a party, and you can run through the game, and there's different classes, like magic user, sword user, and ranger. And there's kind of sub stuff from there, but it's a loot game in the way Diablo is, where you can drop random items from with different stats. And then also the thing that really kept me going with Phantasy Star is Phantasy Star has drop tables for different items, and each character has you make a character and they get a specific color ID based off of a system. Like they have some algorithm for when you put a name in, it gives your guy a color, and then that ID determines what drops you get from enemies. And then eventually over time you could go online and get tables where there was like, if you fight this enemy, it has a 1 in 264 chance of dropping this item. And then there were ones where there's a rare enemy, so they have like rare versions that can spawn, and then there's a drop chance off the rare enemy, so you have to get the rare enemy spawn, and then off the rare enemy spawn you would have like a 1 in 10 chance of getting some item. So people would go on like hunts for certain items where they would run certain missions or certain levels, because there was you're basically trying to figure out where you can find the most things. So the addiction of that game was finding all the good gear, kind of like you see in modern MMOs and stuff. But it was kind of like my first experience with all that, and to this day I could sit with 4 people and just play that game. It's just so much fun. And if you went and played it now, the way the controls work for the combat is super outdated. It came out I think the original came out on the Dreamcast in 2001. But yeah, but it's still, I could still sit around and play it. It's a lot of fun.
So you love it for the grind.
Kind of, yeah. It's addicting to me. I could sit down and play it right now. Yeah. So what about you guys? What's your top tier?
So I guess on my A, I have Titanfall 2, which I think is kind of a unique pick.
Mm-hmm.
I played Titanfall 1, and I think it had good underlying systems, combat system, and kind of ideas. But Titanfall 2 really kind of, for me, it kind of flew under the radar, I think, for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it got like the attention it deserved. But the campaign was really really interesting and cool. The story was cool. Kind of the unique aspect of the movement that you get with the Titan, and then as the pilot, really kind of took it to the next level for me. And unfortunately, I've seen a couple videos now that the servers for Titanfall 2 kind of are being like hacked all the time by like bots, so that
Right.
makes it like unplayable for some reason. And that there's this like group of people that kind of, they did it to Titanfall 1 servers, I guess, as well, that are just constantly attacking the servers and destroying the game. So unfortunately, it kind of has died down a little bit. But
I like Titanfall 1 a lot. That was a lot of fun. I may have played like a couple of games of 2. I think one of my friends had it at one point, but I never got into 2. But not because I didn't like 1. 1 was so much fun. Like it was very unique. Like with the getting in the mech suits, and then I thought it was really cool. And their missions were, it was a very short kind of campaign thing, but they're like missions based around kind of the same like multiplayer game almost.
Right.
That was cool. I had fun playing that game. And
Yeah.
there's like a cult following for Titanfall 2. And I believe there was like rumors about them working on something, but it wasn't Titanfall 2. But the developer of it still talks about Titanfall 2 occasionally. They make reference to it.
Yeah, I've seen a few things from Respawn is the developer, owned by EA, but
Yeah.
I've seen a couple things they've tweeted out and social media and stuff like that. But I think the major thing that they're focusing on now is Apex Legends, which is like the spin-off game of from Titanfall, which utilizes a lot of the guns from Titanfall. And that's a really successful game now, free to play battle royale, which kind of has taken the scene by the storm. But yeah, Titanfall 2 for sure, an A tier for me. Moving up to A+. I think I'm showing my age, but I'd put Minecraft up there. I'd say Minecraft is it's for sure A+. Just the simplicity of it, and then obviously all the modding that you can do and all the different things that came out of it. Definitely one of the top games I've ever played. And I think it definitely is a nostalgic type of thing as well, I think. So
yeah, if you like building things and like crafting, it's definitely addicting. It's a really good game.
Also, you can play online, and you can make servers, play with your friends, all that sort of thing. So definitely up there. Not much of a story, but gameplay I think is very, I wouldn't say very unique, but the way they went about it and everything kind of fell into place.
It was very novel, I feel like, when it first came out. There's so many other things that have kind of riffed off of it now, but I don't remember anything kind of pulling off the way they did. It was simple, but that's kind of what was good about it.
Right. Yeah, it was one guy, right? Notch. So.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, when I played that game at first, it was like back when it was Java, and you had to like go to that website and pay for it from his. I can't remember the company he had, but. Yeah.
So, it's definitely up there. S tier for me, Rocket League. It's probably my favorite game of all time right now. I think it's just such a unique game.
Yeah.
It takes kind of the sports game and then makes it almost personal. So instead of being looking down from a third person view and controlling an entire team, you're now on the field controlling one player as yourself to put the ball into the goal or into the score essentially.
At this point, it feels like Rocket League had longevity. It's just such a fun thing to sit and play. It's like it really is like a sport, but applied in like a video game.
Right.
I totally agree with that statement. And Rocket League for me probably goes between S and F, just depending on, how good matchmaking is that day. The one thing I feel like about Rocket League is I feel like their rankings they're weird. I don't understand them. But I have a lot of fun playing, but then other times the game's like, I don't know how, because like I'll play one game and I'll have people who can barely hit the ball, like just on one team or the other, like a couple of them. I'll be like, what? How are these people ranked here? And then I'll go into the next game and I'll have people just aerialing over the top of me and
Right.
just scoring on me. And those people that's one game to another from the same rank. So sometimes like that, it gets frustrating to play because I'd like to play more competitive games in it. But when you get like good games in there, it's so much fun. I agree.
Yeah.
Great game.
I mean, I could talk a lot about those issues. I think it kind of, you look at any other ranking system within a game, I think it's similar issues of just inconsistencies. So
Right.
I don't think, there's boosting and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think
Right.
those are kind of common problems. But the reason it's not S plus for me is because it doesn't seem like sometimes it doesn't seem like the developers care about kind of taking risks and moving forward. It seems kind of had to have flatlined for me. Yeah, stagnated for sure. They did release a new game mode, I think 2 weeks ago. That was pretty fun, but it's been really constant, and I'm not sure what they're planning to do. I know Unreal Engine, I think, was it 5 is the newest engine. So I've heard stuff about maybe they are gonna just make an entirely new game, Rocket League 2, let's say, on the new game engine.
Okay.
So maybe that's what's taking a lot of their time and energy. I don't know, but
That'd be cool.
yeah.
Make the cars more customizable.
Right. There's lots of quality of life adjustments I think they could make in that game, but they are a small studio, even though they did just get bought by Epic. Epic Games. So they have a little bit more firepower in terms of funding, but they're still a pretty small studio. Anyway.
Well, you might think like they're gonna release another game, like you say, Rocket League 2, but they probably want to do that so they can just unify it all into Epic Games. Because right now, like for example, on PC, I play Rocket League through Steam.
Right.
And if you bought it through there, you can play it through there. You can't buy it there anymore.
Right.
But I wonder if they're trying to kind of unify more of their system.
Maybe. Yeah, I know the kind of the what's it called? Where you buy the games from, like the store. Epic Games has their own launcher, right? It's called
launcher, yeah.
So I assume that's a big competitive thing with Steam and Epic Games. Ubisoft has their own, like all these different companies have their own launchers, right?
It's been pouring so much money into getting people to use theirs. Like that's been their whole thing. Because they're giving away all these free games to try and get people to install their launcher.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. But in terms of S plus, I kind of have two. I have FIFA 13 and FIFA 14. I think a lot of it has to do with my personal experience. It was probably the best FIFA games I've ever played. Okay. In my opinion, it was when I was in high school, like sophomore and junior years of high school. I just would come home, play FIFA Ultimate Team for hours, and it was one of those games that I was like, it wasn't like super realistic, but that was partly the reason that you love to play it. It was like, as these sports games kind of move towards trying to be more realistic, it kind of would take the fun out of it because you're like, well, I'm playing a video game.
Right.
Of course, there's going to be some weird, like, non-natural things that happen, like that aren't bugs, but that are just like cool, like, you know, for example, like a long shot or I don't know, just some crazy stuff like that. So I thought that was like the pinnacle of FIFA games. So I put that S plus. So
okay,
I think they've only gone downhill from there, but I haven't picked up a FIFA game in a while. So
I mean, it's all changing with the next edition, right?
Yeah, they're getting rid of the FIFA namesake now because
so
took their
so
licensing away.
Yeah, FIFA took the licensing away. So are we gonna have is FIFA still gonna try and get somebody else to make a game for them?
I don't think so. I think it's just kind of be FIFA doesn't want to loan it out to one party at a time. So
then EA basically has to go make deals with individual clubs, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, chat's saying it's EA Sports FC is what they're calling it.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be called. But the main competitor of FIFA is PES, Pro Evolution Soccer, which I believe is Konami.
Wait, that hasn't been out in a while though, because Konami kind of stepped away from a lot of video
They
games.
did a free. Their last one was like a free release.
Okay.
And they had contracts. I know they had contracts with a few clubs and some players, so they were able to get a few likenesses.
Gotcha.
Okay. Chat saying they folded, so I haven't really followed it, but I know they must have made one last gasp.
FIFA's not trying to do their own thing because I mean I know FIFA was asking for 1 billion for the license, but they're getting some chunk of money before, so they're just going to zero that out and be okay with that.
I think they make so much money from their Ultimate Team, which is they've branched out to all their sports games, that I don't think they think that they'll lose it, because so many people put so much money into that game. It's insane. But
Interesting.
I have to do a little more research. I don't know a ton on it, so
Yeah.
But I'll pass it over to Kudrow to hear his top tier.
All right. So kind of building off what I talked about in B tier. A tier, I put Neo 2. For all the reasons why Neo 1 was great, they improved upon it in every possible way. The story was very personal. Following along these two characters, which I really appreciated. The systems were a lot better. One of the things in Neo, which was kind of both good and bad, is like there's a system called Living Weapon, where you could basically just spam it, and you had temporary invincibility, and that you could just hack away at whatever you were fighting at the time. But they really balanced it with Neo 2.
Okay.
Other systems like Soul Cores and such, basically like you can like take, like when you kill demon enemies, yokai, you can like equip sometimes they'll drop these things called Soul Cores that you could equip, and then you could like use their abilities, which I really thought was cool. They added more weapons to the combat system, particularly with the DLCs, which were all really neat. It's just like kind of like what you were talking about, Colton. It's like, after having played Neo 2, it's like I couldn't imagine going back to Neo 1 just because of how much they improved everything about the game. But I mean, the original Neo is still a worthwhile experience, but like Neo 2 is just a fantastic experience.
I gotcha. Yeah, I think I would definitely jump in at Neo 2. I don't think I'd play 1. I'd probably do 2. I might sometime. It's probably the next Souls like on my list, unless something else jumps in front of it.
Well, I'm about to say, and then you can get to the grind in that game, because you got a ton of stuff to farm for.
Yeah, I mean I do like grindy farming, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean a lot of Neo's end game is literally just grinding bosses, whether it be for like new weapon moves, armor sets, it's like smithing texts and such, or there are people who probably just spend hours on that, just farming and grinding bosses.
Gotcha.
Also, like my other complaints, like Neo 1, like enemy variety. There's definitely a lot more enemies are a lot more varied. Like I could go on, but yeah, Neo 2 is a fantastic experience. A plus, which I kind of struggled where to put the next one, because you could probably make an argument for S, but I put Breath of the Wild. I'm sure everyone knows why Breath of the Wild is good.
So I guess, I mean, I would put it in the S probably personally. The thing about Breath of the Wild to me was always the interaction of the systems, and like so many times in Breath of the Wild, I would be playing and I'd be like, I wonder if this would work. Just like thinking about how and it does. It just does. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like there's just so many cool things, and then just random exploration in that game is so fun. And the only other game that's done it is Elden Ring in terms of that exploration fun. Like there's just so much fun in the random exploration in Zelda. Like I'll just run around and find shit that looks cool and go mess around with that. And I have so much fun with that. And it's hard to even say, and we're going to talk about the Sonic Frontiers footage, but like when I look at that, it's like I don't know if this really has like the charm. Like there's just something about Breath of the Wild where that exploration is so fun, and the way
Mhm.
the systems are really fun to play with. I think
I
that's a lot of it.
hmm And I'd agree with that. I mean, as far as the systems and go, Breath of the Wild, like the way you can just interact with the environment is
Yeah,
probably among the best I've seen in gaming.
yeah,
The only reason for me why it's an A plus and not an
mhm,
S
yeah,
is because I felt like so I did everything. Like I completed all 120 shrines, the DLC. I completed Trial of the Sword.
okay,
I wanted to go and fighting Ganon full power. The one reason for me it's A plus is because I felt like after so long, like the gameplay loop started to get repetitive. Like
I
once you do
gotcha.
120 shrines, where it's like, find the shrine, go in, solve the puzzle, get the orb, get the power up.
You didn't like
And
that? I love the shrines.
I love the shrines. It just like the gameplay loop for me started to get a little repetitive. And I
Mhm.
know and I definitely felt like after the 100+ hours or so, like I was kind of like, I've had a lot of fun with this game, but I am definitely ready to be done.
Yeah, yeah. That's a lot of playtime though.
That's also
It's long.
true. But then when I'm probably going to talk about a couple other games on this list where it's like I've had equivalent gameplay time, and I'm just like I'm still having fun.
I gotcha.
So, and kind of jumping into that, S S rank, I put Hollow Knight. For the Hollow Knight being the Metroidvania indie title from Team Cherry, um, where it's just got that was really the first Metroidvania that I'd spent a lot of time with, and it really opened my eyes to the genre,
Mhm.
which kind of led me down a rabbit hole of several other games, which I would probably, I mean, at the absolute lowest, I would put B plus. So, but Hollow Knight itself, like you got great character customization through like charm systems, so you can experiment with different builds. Combat is very satisfying.
Mhm.
Bosses and environments are very varied. The fact that, to my understanding, all the environments are hand drawn too, just really adds a layer of aesthetic beauty. The soundtrack is fantastic.
Hmm.
Uh, Even like the NPCs, like I mean, you don't I mean, interactions are kind of minimal, and the storyline is kind of told in like a Souls-like fashion where you're kind of piecing everything together.
Mhm.
Whether that be through like charm and item descriptions or through some of the sparse character dialogue.
Okay.
But everything just works in this complete charming package, and I just love it.
I've heard really good things about it. I mean, I guess what's the is it like Dark Souls, like where you have like some sort of bonfire? Because I know it's a 2D, but is it like Dark Souls where you have like a bonfire and then you go from bonfire to bonfire, or is it like you start a level over each time, or how does that work?
You have kind of like the checkpoint system, except with Hollow Knight, it's benches.
Okay.
So your character will sit on benches, and then as you're still kind of exploring the levels, assuming you
Yeah.
have the right items,
I got
that's all. You'll also need to like sit at the bench so that your character will update the map and such.
you. Okay.
You'll, so then you will be able to see like all the areas you've explored
I gotcha.
and such.
Interesting. All right.
It's
Well,
Mhm.
what's
available
your
on Game Pass, right?
Oh, Hollow Knight is?
Yeah, I believe it's available on Game Pass. I saw.
Okay.
I think I saw videos like some of the games that aren't AAA games that you should play off Game Pass, and Hollow Knight
Gotcha.
was one they threw out there. So
Yeah, that's one I'll have to try that one too. I've been saying for a while I need to. So I'll do that. I'll play that one, Kudrow.
Yeah, I mean even without Game Pass though, the game normal priced is like $15,
Yeah,
and
maybe I'll pick it up then.
yeah, and I got like 120, 130 hours out of it. So
I
I
hope it
got
doesn't take me 130 hours.
well. The funny thing is like when you're talking about Hollow Knight, they kind of like have the two sections of the game. So you have the main areas of the game,
Mhm.
and then you have the DLC, which is the oh god, what's it called? God Home, the God Home DLC, and that that took me quite a while to clear through because those pantheons basically you're doing like boss rushes,
Oh,
and then
gotcha.
the last boss rush is you're literally fighting every enemy in the game, well, every boss in the game without a break, and it's it's a nightmare.
Gotcha. All right. So what's your S plus tier, Kudrow?
I put my S plus, and I think what right now is still my favorite game of all time would be Persona 5. Now there are things I could probably criticize about Persona 5. There are some NPCs and some confidant quest chains that are kind of bland. But I think when I consider the whole package, the characters, the gameplay, how you really have to manage your time doing certain things. So because so the game follows, like, you kind of have like 2 actions a day where you can like do dungeon crawling, or you can kind of like maintain like your social life as like a student and such, hang out with confidants. But and so like but you can only really do like 2 things at once, and then like, some confidants only appear during the day, some confidants you can only interact with at night. So it's like you're constantly making these choices of how you have to spend your time, which really creates this interesting balancing act. But then the combat system, I mean, combat wise, it's turn-based, and it's probably one of the best turn-based RPGs I've ever played in terms of its combat system and just its the sheer system depth. Storylines, like, I mean, the social commentary of the game story-wise is something I really respect. And there are some philosophy comments, like it really plays around with like the 7 deadly sins and how it presents those.
Okay.
And and the way that it presents them, I think, creates a very interesting argument for certain aspects. And then the re-release with Royal, which admittedly I still need to actually beat. But then they've added like new NPCs and new confidant chains that are in many ways as good or better than the base game. So
And Royal is that like a Persona 4 Gold kind of deal where it's like the full game plus?
exactly, yeah.
Okay. Is that so? The Persona 5 originally was a PS4 exclusive,
Yes,
and is Persona 5 Royal available anywhere else?
I think it's still a PlayStation exclusive.
Gotcha.
I know I kept hearing rumors through the rumor mill that they were talking about bringing Persona 5 over to the Switch, but I don't think that ever came to fruition.
I mean, I remember when they put Persona 4 Gold out on PC, and they were like amazed at how good the sales were. Because I played through that one, and that game was surprisingly fun, and the story was like kind of cheesy anime-ish, but it was still interesting, and I really liked the game a lot. So I do want to try Persona 5, but I'm hoping they'll port it to PC at some point. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, between my game time in Royal and the original, I'm probably 250, maybe like 275 hours in, but
Wow.
I know I could still go back, play more of that game, and just have a blast.
Interesting. All right. Well, hopefully that gives everyone kind of an idea of kind of our gaming tastes and our gaming tendencies, I guess. So now we're gonna do kind of weekly topics with this show, and we're planning to kind of cover topical game and entertainment news that comes up that we find interesting, and also just generally maybe like we'll select topics that we've looked into or interested in that week. And also we're planning to do kind of a group media experience where the 3 of us are all going to watch or play a particular thing over each week, and then we're going to discuss that thing the following week. This week we're going to talk about the Halo series. Just came out on Paramount Plus. I think 2 months ago maybe it started, but all the episodes are out now, streaming on Paramount Plus, and we won't do any spoilers probably beyond the first couple episodes, but we're going to talk about kind of our general thoughts of the series overall. Yeah, do any of you guys have strong feelings on it?
I don't have strong feelings, but I can go first. I've only watched, I think, the first 4 episodes.
Okay.
I didn't really have any. ideas going into it. I
Mhm.
was kind of expecting, or I was kind of not expecting anything great. I just kind of sat down to watch it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not a huge Halo gamer. I've only played a little bit of Halo. I've started playing the most recent Halo multiplayer, so that's kind of my background with Halo. But it was definitely interesting.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's good or bad yet. I think I
Okay.
have to continue watching it.
Okay. So you're on the fence.
But
Still.
definitely, I was definitely engaged in the story though. This, I still want to find out what happens and
Yeah.
all of that. And so I think if that continues, then I'll for sure keep watching it.
Okay.
I think the style kind of is interesting to me. It threw me off a little bit initially watching it when the Spartans came in and started fighting and
Yeah.
shooting and the
Uh-huh.
covenant was there and
Right.
so but right now it's like you said, I'm kind of on the fence and
So yeah, and I guess you're talking about that opening fighting scene where like the Covenant invades the planet and is like murdering everybody, and then the
right,
Spartans show up, and so I guess to me, I felt like that opening sequence really did a great job of like setting up who the Spartans were and kind of introduces the lead as like invading this. They're like it sets up the like Covenant and elites as kind of like a ruthless force that just rolls over, and then the end the Spartans come in and it shows you kind of the Spartans are actually talked up before. It talks up kind of the badassery of the Spartans, and then they roll in at the end and just fuck everything up. And
right,
then you kind of also see their uh, emotionless nature at the end, kind of where he sees the girl and the one survivor, and then he just leaves. He's like, "All right, we're
right,
out," and then he just walks away. And I thought
right,
that I honestly like thought that was a really kind of for for me, like I've played all the Halos except for I'm only like I don't know a third of the way through the newest one. Um, so I've like I'm familiar with the story, but if somebody wasn't, I feel like that opening scene kind of does a good job of bringing people in, and the fighting scenes, they get a little cheesy when it goes into like first person kind of, but at the same time, I appreciate that they're trying something, and I don't think it takes away from the overall series for me. Like I enjoyed it, and like I did like that, even though it goes into first person and he does like Halo things, like
right.
things that happen in Halo, he does in the series. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, but it gets a
Yeah.
little cheesy. But overall, like I really felt like they did a good job introducing stuff there.
Yeah, I agree. I think they kind of set up the story right with kind of how nobody on the planet, thought highly of the Spartans, and then the Covenant comes in, and then you kind of see how they're emotionless, basically
Right.
super soldiers, right? That are programmed to kill essentially, and that's about it. But I do, if I remember correctly, I think it was one of the art director for Halo 1, 2, and 3 kind of said some stuff about how it didn't really fit his vision for Halo.
Okay.
I'll have to look more into that, but I know
I
he
gotcha.
said some stuff about that, and then also whoever created or is directing the show said they didn't really even take into account the games at all. They kind of were using their own personal, I guess,
Yeah.
artistic style or whatever you want to call it to
I
do
mean,
it.
I guess I felt like it definitely had a lot of kind of references to the games, like with a lot of things. And I think, and I'm seeing in the chat here, there's a comment. I think the biggest problem with Halo was showing Chief's face. Um, and then they could have hid the actor's face, but and I've seen that like that's like a problem people have, that like you can't show Master Chief's face. Why is there a human in the Covenant? And
Right.
I I don't. Yes, but I don't know how else you almost need to make, like they're trying to make a good show here, and I so humanizing Master Chief, I think, is part of the thing that kind of starts to make the show good. Like I understand that it's not like the same, but I can't be mad at them for, because a lot of times he's not even wearing his armor like in this show,
Right.
and I mean, maybe it's not like the game, but I think it was good as a show, and I think I kind of feel like I'm just happy that it was a good show. I kind of feel like if you just had Master Chief with his helmet on the whole time and he never really talked or took his helmet off, I don't know if it would be a good show. I don't know if that works. Like, it's not the same as when you play a video game. Like
Right. You'd have to go a different direction.
I was a fan of the way they humanized him, and I felt like they still kind of left him with, like, in the beginning he had this, like, these tendencies, and then you kind of see the development, and I liked that, I guess. And
Mhm.
so I can't be mad about his helmet coming off because I feel like you almost had to make a good show.
Right. It was kind of a risk they needed to take in order to progress the show, essentially, in order to draw people into the character. I
Yeah.
think that's a good analysis.
I think I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree with it, though.
All right,
Um,
Kudra.
I mean, so I feel like in Halo you kind of have the two camps, and I feel like for people who are fans of like the games and the books,
Mhm.
I can kind of see where they're coming from more with the gripes than maybe individuals like us who aren't
Yeah.
as into the Halo series.
Sure.
Kind of referring back to the chats, like they could have hit the actor's face like they did with Mando. So referencing the Mandalorian.
Mhm.
So one of the things with the Mandalorian is there are only a very couple of key times that you see the Mandalorian's face.
Mhm.
And again, like it's only very of critical and plot importance that you
Mhm.
see it. And even then it's usually only for like a couple minutes at a time,
I
if
gotcha.
that.
Yeah.
And like the Mandalorian himself is still a pretty compelling character, all things considered. I don't necessarily think that, the face alone, um, just showing it is not is necessarily going to make all of a sudden mean the difference between what makes a compelling character and a non-compelling character.
Yeah.
Just to maybe make another point of reference,
Uh-huh.
when I'm thinking of like, I don't know if you guys remember the Judge Dredd movie that starred Sylvester Stallone in like I think it was the 90s, the late 90s.
Okay. Yeah.
That
You've
was one of
lost
the
me.
biggest. Yeah, I mean, I've never read the Judge Dredd comics, but that was one of the biggest complaints people had about that movie was how much time, you know, Dredd spent with his helmet off.
Yeah.
Because again, like comics, Judge Dredd in the comics never spent any time with his helmet off, which is part of the reason why I think the remake or the next Judge Dredd movie, I forget when it was made, but the one that starred Carl Urban,
Wasn't
again,
that one terrible?
I actually enjoyed it
Gosh, I don't
personally.
think I watched it. I remember hearing it wasn't good, but I don't think I ever saw it.
I enjoyed it for what
I
it
gotcha.
was.
Okay.
It's definitely it, it's huge action. It there were some there were probably some things that they could have done a little bit differently, but I mean I don't think it was a bad movie. But I do the going back to the opening fight scene for Halo, I do think one of the one of the things that I thought was a little ridiculous though was like the humans have access to all these weapons like the turrets and such that at some point the Spartans are like ripping off the hinges and using that to like kill elites, which for whatever reason were completely unsuccessful in the human hands. Which I guess just kind of further exacerbates like setting up the Spartans as these badasses. But
Did they use human weapons to break was the armor already broken?
No, I think they were using the human weapons to break the armor, if I'm remembering the scene
Oh,
correctly.
okay. I maybe so because I took it as like the people in the colony or whatever didn't have the same kind of weapons that the UNSC did, so they weren't useful against the
Right.
elite's armor. That's what I
They don't-
assumed. I guess I
They
didn't
don't have the
realize
energy weapons, right?
Yeah, I might need to go. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch the scene, but
Yeah, I'm not certain.
I mean, but I will highlight though a few things that I did like about the show. I do think probably like Halsey is a fantastic character.
Yeah.
I think she's very interesting.
Mhm.
And I mean, I know we haven't seen past episode 4. I've watched all of season 1, so
That as well.
I will just say like how her character arc progresses. I do think is interesting. The relationship as it evolves with Master Chief and Cortana,
Yeah, I
I do
think that's
think,
my favorite.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm, there are a couple things that I feel like I would have loved to have gotten more like that I almost feel like the show had gone in the direction of instead. Like there was one comment made, and I think it was when Halsey was talking
Mhm.
about how Spartans were used for like political assassinations and
Yeah.
things like that. And I was like,
Mhm.
where's that show? Can I watch that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess if one's successful, they might build upon it, but yeah, I don't know about that, but I really liked the Cortana character and the interactions with Master Chief. And I liked how Cortana's character evolved too. Just and like at the beginning when he first meets Cortana and he like doesn't know how to deal with it. Like it's like he's like confused by it, and then Cortana's also confused, and then the development of that I thought was really cool. Um, yeah, I really I kind of liked the humanizing of Master Chief and doing all that stuff. It got a little weird with some of it, but overall, I really did like the show. Like, I'm interested to see the second season and see what they do with it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I really kind of liked it. Like, in terms of video game adaptations to shows or movies, I feel like it's one of the better ones I've seen. And there's a
I
lot of bad ones.
I do hope they do something to make the Quan that was that girl Quan Ha and her planet arc interesting, because whenever they flip back to that, I just immediately thought like I really don't care about anything happening on the screen right now.
Oh, really? Okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
I
I just kept thinking it's like please go back to Master Chief.
okay. Yeah, I guess in the you're talking about the episode where I think it isn't it like the second episode, or I know there's some points where it focuses on the what Soren was his name, right?
Yep,
Or
Soren
Lieutenant
and
Soren.
Quan Ha I think
Yeah.
was the girl's name.
I guess it wasn't my favorite part of it, but I kind of liked all the dialogue and the relationships between people that it showed. Like I honestly felt like it did those well, but maybe that's just the kind of movies and TV shows I like though that make it work more for me as opposed to, you know.
I think it had the only purpose to me was just to build Master Chief's backstory with his friend, right? I think that was probably the main purpose. But after that, like Kudrow said, is do you really need it?
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Right.
Like
Okay. Yeah,
that
I
sort
mean,
of thing.
I suppose I could see that.
But like I said, I've only experienced the first 3 or 4 episodes, so I don't know the full extent.
Yeah, I mean, for me, watching the whole season one, I would put the whole season one. I would say uh, B for me. Torn between B and B plus. I think B. That's where I'd put it. Like I really did enjoy it. There were some things I wish were better. Um, some of it seemed kind of cheesy, but overall, I really did enjoy it, and I'm super interested to see the next season. And video game adaptations, like I feel like so many of them are bad,
Right.
so I'm pretty happy with it.
Right now, I'm probably at a C, so
Yeah,
it might go up. I'd say it's about average, but like you said, in terms of video game adaptations,
right.
it's one of the better ones for sure. So
Yeah,
I have to agree with Quinn. I think I'd go about a C. I
gotcha.
can't. I don't think I can go any higher than that.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I feel like a video game adaptation's getting a C is that's great. I feel like the average for video game adaptations is probably like a D.
I feel like the average is on the upswing lately, though.
Yeah, definitely. But I've watched a lot of them over the years, and God, you just every one of them you go into, and it's just like, oh no. Um, okay, well, so we're gonna do another group media experience next week, and we're going to be watching Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and yeah, we'll talk about that next week. So now we'll move on to some other topics. I see we got a question or in the chat. Video game adaptation is hard, but Sonic is probably the closest. We can talk about Sonic 2. In terms of video game adaptations, I would say Sonic 2 is pretty good. To me, some of it came across as like, I don't know, maybe for younger audiences, which is fine, but it was like it was interesting enough for me to watch it. And I really liked like the Knuckles character. He's probably my favorite. Um, but yeah, I thought Sonic 2 is pretty good. Um, I guess it like is made for a younger audience, I think, and I'm pretty sure it's very successful at that. So I guess it works. And I'll probably watch the third one. Like I watched the first one and this one. I'll probably watch the third one too
Right.
after seeing that.
Yeah, I'd say it's for sure like a family movie, right? Like you take your family, go see it.
Yeah.
Especially for how successful the first one is. I think, they're definitely trying to capitalize on that. And I think they did a really good job at kind of keeping the same sort of humor level and still
Mhm.
making it interesting to watch. So
Yeah, I think where it gets me is like just the cheesy lines, like like at the end, like we're a family, and then like Sonic uses like the power of family or whatever. But
yeah,
yeah.
I'd say Jim Carrey does an outstanding job. Like that man is crazy, but he
Oh,
plays it so well.
Spoiler alert for Sonic 2. We may spoil some stuff here. I don't think there's too much to spoil, but I mean,
No, I think it's kind of a easy plot line to follow, right?
yeah, I
Same
do
sort of thing,
agree.
hero type of thing. But
Dr. Robotnik, he's a great Dr. Robotnik.
he's insane.
Very fun
He
to
does
watch.
something on screen, and you're like, what the hell? And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's Jim Carrey.
I feel like the characters in the movie are very good. Like I feel
Yes.
like the Sonic character is very good. Tails is fucking annoying, just like I'd expect him to be. That works. Yeah.
I mean,
So I guess like the most exciting for me was the after the credits scene. Did you guys see the after the credits scene?
Yep.
I haven't
Yep.
seen it.
Dude, Shadow the Hedgehog. He's coming. And he's got
Okay.
glowing red eyes, and hopefully he's got guns.
Guns, like real guns.
There was a video game where Shadow the Hedgehog had guns. But the most exciting thing for me about the next Sonic movie is that I got to see who's going to play Shadow the Hedgehog.
Let's have to wait and see.
But I am kind of surprised that we've already got Shadow the Hedgehog. Like I felt like that was like they make 2 more movies then once numbers start dipping, then you bring in Shadow. Do you think Shadow's going to be on their team by the end of the movie?
Undoubtedly.
Are we going
Gotta
to get what is it, Rouge the Bat? That'd be a weird CGI model.
I always forget how many like characters there are in that universe. All the different animals.
Yeah, it's wild. What, Big the cat, that weird looking giant cat.
There's the alligator crocodile thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was
You say the
rambling.
Sonic 2 movie, like I don't know that like it's super memorable, like the plot of it. I'm not even sure. I watched it just a few days ago, and I mean, it's kind of just basic, which I guess it for what it is. It's like just you watch it and forget about it maybe, and you remember the characters more than the movie.
Wow, don't sell it too hard.
Oh, it's also just like what you said too. I mean, we are definitely not that movie's target
Right.
audience.
Sure. And I honestly think it's great. Like as a game adaptation, I think it's great. But
Mhm.
I think the characters are the most memorable part of it.
Yeah.
So question in the chat, if we gave our Halo ratings in terms of video game adaptations, how would we rate the Resident Evil franchise or Monster Hunter? I imagine you guys have seen some Resident Evil or no?
I haven't seen any of them, so
I have not.
I'm out of this.
Oh, okay. Have you guys seen
You have to
Monster
handle
Hunter?
it. No.
Oh,
Wait,
okay. Well,
The Monster
I've
Hunter
seen-
movie actually come out?
yeah, dude, like a year ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um,
I need to watch that.
So I've watched the Monster Hunter movie and I don't know, 4 of the Resident Evil movies. So Monster Hunter movie, God, I wanted that to be cool. And it some of it was like all the references to Monster Hunter, and then like the actual monsters they fought were kind of cool looking, but it felt really slow for the first like long portion of the movie. And then they would just do dumb stuff. Like there's this giant fucking Diablos floating around outside of this like mountain they're stuck on, and they're fighting against each other. Like really? Like two, like you see another human, and then there's a giant Diablos out there just murdering anything that walks on the sand. And they fought each other for like a good 20 minutes in the movie, and it just you're just like, this is dumb. And it just felt like the characters were kind of dumb for like a good portion of the movie. And then after that, shit gets crazy towards the end of the movie. There's like a Rathalos, and it, there was some like cool stuff about it. So like if Monster Hunter's on a streaming service, I would say give it a watch, but don't expect it to be like a good movie. It's kind of just like a, I don't know, a throwaway action movie. Like it's a little different because it's got Monster Hunter stuff in it, but I found myself laughing at it a lot of the time, just like with the stuff that was happening.
Like ironically, or like
It
wasn't supposed to be funny.
Well, I don't know that it was supposed to be funny, but it was just like so like it was almost like comical.
Gotcha.
Yeah, from the chat, Monster Hunter was like a visual pleasing movie, but the acting in it was a joke. I would agree with that. Like the monsters actually looked really good, and some of the fight scenes, I was like, "This is kind of cool," but then you just laugh at like the cheesiness of the rest of it, and so it's kind of a good time. I would say drink a couple beers when you watch it. It's a good one. The Resident Evil movies. So, Monster Hunter. What would I rate Monster Hunter? That is a good question. Oh, Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter probably falls in a D plus, probably. I'd say Monster Hunter is a D plus for me. Then if we move on to Resident Evil, the first Resident Evil movie, I liked when it it came out a long time ago, and I watched it one time like more recently within the last few years, and I didn't find it to be as good. I don't know. I don't remember it 100%. It's been a few years since I've seen it, but like I feel like the Resident Evil movie, I would go with. I think that one also probably ends up in the D plus tier. Like it kind of is that same where like the storyline. I remember watching it; it was super cheesy, and I just it, when I was like in my teens, I thought Resident Evil was cool, but after that, like when I watched it like more as an adult, I was like, okay, this is fine, but it's kind of cheesy in the same way I feel like a lot of video game adaptations run into that thing where they're kind of cheesy. And I feel like Resident Evil was kind of that. And then beyond the first one, I'm not sure I can remember the differences between any of them. The one where they were like in the desert and they were on a bus, I think it was Extinction. That one gets one tier higher. That one's a C. All the other ones you can keep them in the D plus tier. So that's how I feel.
Nothing to write home about.
No. Anyways, so the other thing we're going to talk about is the Sonic Frontiers new game trailer that came out yesterday. I don't know if they haven't announced a date or anything for that. I don't think.
I believe it's supposed to come out this year sometime, but they haven't announced a hard date.
I gotcha. So I think a lot of the first reactions were like, "Oh, it's Sonic open world. What are they doing? A Breath of the Wild game?"
Right.
But I guess, what did you guys think watching that trailer?
I thought the visuals were pretty nice.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, it did seem kind of bland, not gonna lie. Like there wasn't much going on. It was, the classic, he runs fast, he grinds on a pole, he grabs rings, he, does Sonic things. That's about it. He does it in an open world. But
yeah, I thought it felt empty too.
Yep, that'd be my biggest takeaway from it. They
Right.
there needs to be. I need to see more.
Yeah, and I like you know, you might say, okay, well maybe there's more, but you're just not seeing it. But you would think with the opening trailer they'd want to show you some stuff to like build
Draw
up
you in.
hype for it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Maybe they just missed like the first Sonic movie.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel like the open world doesn't look interesting. Like it kind of just looks like you took a Sonic Adventure 2 level and you just made it gigantic.
Right. And you threw it in the newest engine
Yeah.
and
And then
called
it,
it.
like,
Oh yeah.
it shows him doing like some puzzles and stuff, right? And then like doing some stuff where he spins around like a thing and it opens it up and like I don't know, man. Maybe I
Yeah.
hope they got some more to show for that because that's not looking like a strong output.
Yeah. I think that's what most of the feedback has been in terms of online commentary and articles and stuff like that. It's like, oh, it looks like they didn't do anything different. It's updated to like the newest,
Right.
engines and
Yeah.
open world and all that, but they didn't really do anything incredibly unique. So
Yeah,
we'll see how they respond to that, I guess.
I also didn't. I saw him collecting rings, and I think that was it. I didn't see anything else get collected. So, is there
Right.
like? I feel
There-
like they should. I want to be able to feed my chows or something and have a chow garden. Then I might be in.
There was one other thing Sonic was collecting at like the end of a lot of like ring chains and such, but I didn't really see what it was or what
Those
it
like
did for
green
that
ball
matter.
things.
Something like that.
I thought the green ball things were like jump points you could jump to. Well, you got.
Oh no, not the jump points. There was like
There's something else.
it was like this what was it, like this pink yellow colored thing that like Sonic would grab like usually at the end of like those jump puzzles or rings or whatever.
I gotcha. Okay, so maybe
I'm not
there's.
sure.
I would imagine there's some other kind of collectibles, but um, yeah, the big sad thing for me is when I look at that open world, what it kind of reminds me of is Fantasy Star because a lot of the designs in there, like Fantasy Star is made by Sonic Team. That's who made the Fantasy Star game. When I look at the open world, I'm like, oh my god, this is like the style of like Fantasy Star Online. Like you could have made an awesome Fantasy Star Online open world. Instead, you just got dumb Sonic here. So that's the saddest thing for me. We could have had a Fantasy Star Online brand new open world game. Instead, we got Sonic.
Yeah. I don't know. Question from the chat: do you think Sonic games like Frontiers are outdated?
Um, for me personally, I don't think I've liked any Sonic game since like Sonic 2. Well, actually, no, I lied. I like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I liked that one. That one was fun. You could raise chows. I don't know that the levels were the Sonic levels were cool. The levels where you were like Knuckles or Rouge and you had to dig for gems. I feel like those kind of got boring because the gems were in static spots. Really, I like to play that game to collect stuff, so I was grinding to raise my chows, and then you could get with your friends and your chows could battle each other, and that was a lot of fun. But in terms of like Sonic games, I don't feel like I had fun. I've like had any interest in any Sonic games. Like I don't really have any interest in just playing a 2D side scrolling Sonic. Like maybe once in a while for like 30 minutes, but
Right.
not much beyond that.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily outdated, but I definitely think you need to show something new. You need to really kind of make your own niche, I guess, if you're going to do it. So,
Yeah, there's just especially if you're going open world, like there's a lot of good depth open world things out there, and maybe Sonic has a lot more to show, but this trailer did not show me like, oh, I need to play this. I was kind of like, oh, it doesn't look like there's much to do here.
right. It seemed more of like a hype trailer. Like, oh, Sonic's still around. Yeah.
Like hype trailer, they got to have other like zones in there, right? Because that was like just I feel like show me another zone, like give me something more, like build some
Right.
kind of hype. But I don't know. I guess we don't know when it's coming out either. So
Yeah, I'm not sure.
see some more.
Yeah, I went back kind of looking at the trailer right now. The other collectible I was talking about looks almost look like if you go to like the first minute of the trailer, right at 1 minute,
Mhm.
it's actually looking like he's collecting a heart almost.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But
Well, I guess too early to tell, but I'm not excited by that trailer.
I'd agree.
I guess I appreciate that maybe they're trying to do something different, but hopefully we see a little more depth to it. So,
Yeah, it seems kind of barren as of now.
right. Yeah.
But
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all we have for today. You can find me at Voltron City on Twitter. You can subscribe to us on Twitch and YouTube. We'll be doing this every Thursday at 9 p.m. And then the podcast version of this will go live on podcast platforms Friday morning. So you can listen to us in podcast form as well. But yeah, we'll be doing this every Thursday. We hope to see you again.
yeah, and we're doing Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark this week. So
Indiana
stay
Jones and
tuned.
the Lost Ark. Next week, we're going to discuss that. Yeah. See you later.
So, yep.